morning. Happy Tuesday, PASW staff, clients, and friends joining us. So welcome. Today we're gonna revisit an older class because tomorrow we're gonna look at somebody who was really influenced by Louis Jordan. So I want you to take a look at Louis Jordan today. This is from about a year ago because he was really one of the first, as we'll see, pioneers of rock and roll, of boogie woogie, and then we're gonna see tomorrow Chuck Berry. We're going to see that Chuck Berry had a lot of influence from Louis Jordan about 10 years later. So Louis Jordan's, this is, again, when you see this class, this is the 40s, the 1940s, this early sound on the saxophone. Chuck Berry's going to do this 10 years later in the mid-50s with the guitar, as we know. But let's just, we're gonna take a look at that tomorrow. But we need to recap the origins of rock and roll, boogie woogie, with the great Louis Jordan. So let's take a look. Okay, we're gonna go back to the early origins of rock and roll. We've talked a little bit about how rock and roll started with Little Richard and Elvis, but this guy's even before these guys. I mean, kind of the same as almost a little before Little Richard. He's somebody that deserves a class. Not, like the best kind of music personally, but I do like a lot of his songs a lot. And but regardless, his contribution is so important to early rock and roll. So we're going to be looking at the really great, charismatic, hilarious, but very talented musician, Louis Jordan.
Heading for the station with a pack on my back. I'm tired of transportation in the back of a hack. I love to hear the rhythm of the clickety-clack and hear the lonesome whistle, see the smoke from the stack, and pal around with Democratic fellas named Mac. So take me right back to the track, Jack.
Louis Jordan was called the king of the jukebox. Do you guys know what a jukebox is? I mean, it's pretty, yeah, you probably do. I mean, I'm showing you it right now, so you're probably like, oh yeah. King of the jukebox, he was an American saxophonist. That was his main instrument, but also played other instruments, and a songwriter, a band leader, very popular in the late 1930s, okay? So he's born in 1908, dies in 1975, so sees a lot of music change. Let's go to where he's born. He's in Arkansas. So let's fly over there, and as we fly over there, let's whip up our timeline. I've restarted my free trial, so you're going to see some familiar looking timelines here, just to see at where exactly his music is fitting into our music history together that we've been looking at. So as you can see, it's early. So he's kind of right at the end of the swing era. He's part swing. But then he's gonna start laying the foundation for early roots of rock and roll. Now we looked at Little Richard, and he was similar to that because what he did was, and if you remember, Louis Prima too. These guys were taking swing music, but making it a little bit more boogie woogie. And because of this boogie woogie, you're gonna get early roots of rock and roll. So just bear with me. Well, it should be fun. We'll see. Okay, so we'll discover what, we'll get into it. But his father was a music teacher and a band leader. So at an early age, Louis Jordan studied clarinet and saxophone. But here's the thing, as a saxophonist, he didn't start off wanting to be a jazz saxophonist. His goal was to create a broader appeal, and to have a broader appeal, which is probably smart because, I mean, if you're going in for the fame and the money, you're not going to pick jazz, right? So he's going to take what's going on with the swing era. With the swing, we have the people that we always talk about. We have Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey, Artie Shaw. Those guys are great. And then we've learned recently about Duke Ellington, how he took swing music, big band music rather, and incorporated jazz elements. So he kind of had a jazz orchestra, right? So Louis Jordan is not going to be doing that a little bit. He starts the Timpani Five. They were so popular in LA, he starts this group, and they were getting paid $300 to $2,000 per night. And people have said that he sort of ruined big bands because, and I mean, I think for the better part, because what he could do is, and this is the advent of rock and roll and amplification in the 40s. What the big bands have a huge sound. Why? Because they got 30, 40 players. he's going to find a smaller ensemble, which saves a lot of money, and with amplification, a slight, we're not talking Metallica amplification, with slight, he's going to be able to play just as loud and just as energetic and just as powerful with his quintet, sextet, with a small group of people. So this is the early start of a rock and roll band, what he's pretty much starting. Even though he's playing saxophone was really big in the 30s and 40s. That's, it was, now you don't hear the instrument as much because you have, the rock goddess and guitar players, which is fine. But he's kind of one of the first rock musicians playing saxophone. And so he's developing a new sound.
She got great big feet. She long, lean, and lanky, and they had nothing to eat. But she's my baby, and I love her just the same. Crazy about that woman called Caledonia is her name. Caledonia, Caledonia, oh, what makes your big head so hard? I love you just the same. I'll always love you, baby, cause Caledonia is your name.
So with Louis Prima, we looked at his, similar to what Louis Prima did at this same time. Louis Prima stayed in the swing section a little bit more. Louis Jordan's doing jump blues, they call it. It's a swinging up-tempo dance music though. So it's got jazz, blues, and then boogie woogie, which is gonna lead us into, and Elvis is catching on to this too, as we saw in the timeline. Elvis is pretty much, not stealing, but taking from black groups. I mean, I think that's pretty well known. But I mean, why is he taking it? Because it's such good music. I mean, the black musicians were playing they really knew how to swing it in a way that white musicians, I think, could, but they were like, yeah, I mean, we want to sound like this too. And then with Elvis, of course, you get the Beatles, but then the Beatles still were influenced heavily by Elvis, but also by people like Louis Jordan and people that created the roots of rock and roll. So what we're hearing is syncopated vocals, right? It's funny. He had a great comedic timing. He was in movies too, and made cameos. It's also just really fun music. It's lively. You got the rhythm section, you got the piano, bass, drums, and then an organ and a piano, and then a saxophone. So he's forming an early rock and roll band in the 40s, way before Elvis and the Beatles are starting to, or way before the 60s, I should say, when everybody had a band. He's doing this at an earlier stage. He was married 5 times and stabbed a few times, but that's just like most marriages. I think you get stabbed once or twice. No, but he co-wrote many of the songs that he performed. He didn't benefit though from these songs. Like Caledonia is one of his most famous songs, and it's credited to his wife, Fleecy Moore. You know Fleecy Moore, right? She had a publishing arrangement with him, and so even though their marriage was short-lived, And Moore did stab Jordan after some domestic disputes. Almost the second time, almost killing him. So she meant business. After their divorce, she got a lot of ownership and credit for some of these songs. Probably not fair, but who knows what kind of a guy personally he was. So maybe it was fair that she got some of that. I don't know. So he died of a heart attack in 1975, and I think his music is really fun, and it's really hard to not acknowledge his importance in the evolution of rock and roll. So that's why we're talking about it. We all know rock and roll music, and we all think it's fun, and he's one of the proponents of really understanding what the kids are liking and are listening to. So that's Louis Jordan. So this is so exciting because now music is evolving toward the band, right? It's less big band, less swing, now a smaller ensemble, and not jazz, but more boogie woogie, early rhythm and blues stuff. And then tomorrow we're going to see Chuck Berry, and we're going to take a look at Chuck Berry and how he was influenced by Louis Jordan, by these other people. So it's so cool. As artists, this is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to see how music has evolved, where it comes from. How do we get here? And that's what I try to explore with you guys. So hope you enjoyed Louis Jordan. I think that guy's so hilarious and charismatic, and very excited to share with you a new class on Chuck Berry tomorrow. So I'll see you then. Okay, thanks. Bye.